So perfect. Thank you, Gabby. All right. So you're all here because you want to learn about the SAP grants, and I appreciate so many people tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up the site to where you all can find it and kind of go through the application and kind of um, tell you all what we're looking for. So that way you're going to be in the best position to have a successful grant application for us. All right, can everyone see my screen?
I can.
Perfect. All right. So where we find it, I mean, we've got it right here. Apply for self-directed art practice grant. The other way to find it is here, just in case you try and apply after that's no longer up. Wellness Arts in the Military under grants. And then we have right here, we have our self-directed art practice grant. A lot of links you gotta go through to get to it, but once you get there, here's our submittable page right here. And as you scroll down, this is going to show you every single grant that's open right now. The one that we're looking for is right here, WAM Self-Directed Art Practice Grant FY25. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. All right. So here's where you're going to get to log in. If you don't have an account, this will be the spot where you create an account. It's really easy to create an account through Submittable. We run every single grant that we do, that ArtsWA does, is run through Submittable. So that's something that you're going to have to do. But it's really easy. Our applications, we try to make them as user friendly as possible. So just scrolling down, what this is, right? So we're going to provide a one-time grant up to $3,000, and these grants pay for costs associated with in-state travel, workshops, retreat fees, supplies, childcare, anything that you need that is going to help you use to be able to complete the project that you want to do. We're going to support that and try and fund that the best that we can. Okay, so the things that we're looking for in our practice plan, 3 art samples, and then a budget of how your time and funds are going to be used. And we're going to dig into that here to really kind of break that down. Excuse me, and what that and see what that looks like. All right, so it closes Friday, October 11th at 11:59. So you don't have to rush to get it done. In fact, I would suggest take your time and do it right, and give yourself the best opportunity to become funded, because this is a competitive grant process. So some folks are going to get awarded and some folks aren't. It goes to a panel and then they score it based off of your application. Okay. We start making notifications for this grant on November 15th. So that just means we're starting on November 15th. So if you don't hear something exactly on November 15th, that's okay. Don't worry. We're going to let you know one way or another. It'll probably take a week and a half to make sure everybody is notified. So if you don't hear something by beginning of December, then feel free to reach out to us and ask what the status is on that. And then the other piece of it is, for those of you who did the grant last year, you're aware of our design thinking for creative expression cohort that we did last year. That was really successful. People really liked it, and we're doing it again this year. And so that's going to be for grantees. It's going to be an 8-week course period where you're going to get together with our teaching artist. Her name is Luce Thompson. She's fantastic. In fact, she would have been here today, but she is on her way back from New Zealand at a teaching artist conference where she was teaching design thinking to artists around the world. So we have a pretty special person who we've contracted with to teach this class. And it's going to be offered at 2 different times, either from 2 to 4 p.m. or an evening class from 5:30 to 7. And we're going to send out a link to the applicants who get awarded to kind of pick the dates for that's going to best fit for you and your schedule. So eligibility. So we're looking for military connected. So we want you to be, you need to be active, guard, reserve, or veteran, or a spouse of one of those, or a child of over 18 of one of those categories. Okay. So some things to take note: past recipients of the grant. We want you to apply. You are more than welcome to apply, but preference is going to be given to to qualified first time applicants. Okay, because we want as many different and new folks as we can to experience this. And then members of the same household, you all are encouraged to apply. However, only one applicant per household is going to be approved. And then preference is going to be given to qualified service member or veteran applications. So just some things to keep in mind while you're doing your application. Okay. So in addition, some other things: you have to be a Washington resident. You have to be pursuing some sort of art practice, and the list that's on here isn't the be all end all list. It can be if there's something that's not on here and you think that you don't qualify, apply, because I'm not gonna sit here and be the gatekeeper of what art is and what art isn't. So if you have something, either just apply outright, or you can send myself, Gabby, or Dania an email and ask us if you think that would qualify. But more than likely, we're probably going to tell you yes, because we want the more creative things, the better, right? You do need to have a statewide vendor number, which if you don't have it right now, that's totally fine. We're pros on helping you get those. And so you just need that by the time the grant goes into effect. And like I said, we'll help you get that if you are unsure of what to do. All right, scrolling down. Required documents. All right, so these are the things that you will have to upload to confirm your military connection. Okay. DOD ID card, DD-214, state issued driver's license with a veteran's designation, VA issued ID card. If you're a spouse or child of active duty, have that DOD dependent ID card. Or if you're a spouse or a child of a veteran, so if you're the spouse of a veteran, have that their veteran documentation. So either a DD-214, VID card, and a marriage certificate. So that way we can confirm that as well. If you're a child, that veteran documentation and a birth certificate. All right. So use of funds. So grant applicants, you have to use the funds for costs incurred from January 1, 2025 to June 30th. All funds have to be spent by then. We can't make any exceptions to that. That's the end of the fiscal year, so we have to spend all of our funds by then. You can use these funds to up to 20% of your funds for to go towards living expenses, so food, rent, gas, whatever that you might need to live. You can use 20% of this grant for that. So all of our grants are reimbursement grants. And we have split it into 2 equal payments. So if you're awarded the full $3,000, your first $1,500 payment is going to come after attending the first class of the Design Thinking for Creative Expression online class. And then your last payment will come at the end after that last class. So we have it split up into 2 different portions. And so you'll get it shortly after. Now, be aware it does take 14 up to 30 days to get a payment once it goes through to get processed, but we try and process them as quickly as we can, so that way you guys can get them as quickly as you can. Documentation, make sure you're tracking your expenses, keeping records, receipts, everything like that. And then project media at the end of this, you guys are going to have to upload media, so photo, video, audio files, something of the project for a digital gallery that we're going to have upon completion. Your art is your art. You can keep it. It's yours to keep, to do whatever you want with it. We just want that so that we can show our funders, the state, what we're using taxpayer dollars for. And then a final report, grant recipients must complete a questionnaire about their experience by the 31st of July. So that'll go out, fill that out, tell us about how the grant was for you, what was great, what worked, what didn't work. Something to be aware of. As I talk about the grant and reimbursement, it is considered income, so it will be taxed. I know that sucks, but there's really not a lot that we can do. There's actually nothing that we can do about that. That's the way that they handle that. So just be aware of that. So grant funds can't be used for traveling outside of Washington. Develop mass-produced items for retail, startup funds for a small business, contest fees, tuition assistance for college, university, or other formal course study that generates course credit. Now, that's not to say you can't take a course, like if there's like an art class or a film class or some sort of class that you want to take that's out of college, you can do that. It just cannot be for credit, if that makes sense to everybody. Purchasing of permanent equipment or real property of $3,000 and up shouldn't be an issue. Costs and or activities outside the grant period. So January 1 to June 30th of 2025. Costs and activities that have occurred prior to the period designated by the grant guidelines. Previous losses incurred or costs and or activities that have already received state appropriations. So you can't use grant funding for something that's already being funded by a different state agency, if that makes sense. So I'm going to stop right here. Do we have any questions? Gabby, how's the chat looking? Do we have anything?
We do have one question, which
Perfect.
is, do you accept VA medical cards?
If it's a picture ID, absolutely. It just has to have a picture ID on it. Yeah.
And then just wanted to let everyone know that for children, you would need veteran documentation and birth certificate.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brian, I got a question for you. So scroll back up to the real property statement. And so that doesn't include, I mean, obviously we can't spend over $3,000, but if we need specific equipment or something, so like, let's say if I want to do welding and get a welder, but it's obviously, not going to be over $3,000. Is that considered permanent equipment or?
Yeah. So the intention of that, yes. So you would not be, if it's, and I was going to get to that once we get to budget, but since you asked the question, Jared, I'll just answer it now. So you can use up to 50% of your grant for a single piece of equipment. And the reasoning behind that is, we want, not only do we want people to be able to use this to get equipment, but we don't want to just give folks equipment without the understanding of how to use it. So we've had applications in the past of, folks wanting to use the entire grant to fund a camera, which, that person doesn't know how to use. And there's no budget left over to take a course of training to learn how to do it. Like, we want folks to be able to not only get the equipment that they need, but also learn how to use it so that way they can get enjoyment out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely answers my question, especially with that 50% rule.
Yeah.
So real property, you're just saying like land, or
yeah, yeah, like real estate. Yeah. All right. So the application process, as we go through, like I said, it's open now. It ends on October 11th. We're going to make there's no exceptions to the application deadline. So please, if you plan on applying, make sure you get your application in before then. We accept online applications through Submittable. So if you don't have an account, make sure to register. They recommend using Google Chrome, Mozilla, Safari as web browsers. So keep that in mind as you're doing it. It's really easy. Making an account is really easy. And then, take your time when completing the application. It automatically saves as you move through the questions, as long as you're connected to the internet. so you don't have to fill it out all in one sitting. Take your time, do it right, ask us for questions. If you're filling it out and have a question, you're more than welcome to contact myself, Dania, or Gabby. We're here. We want you guys to be successful. This grant means nothing unless the folks like you apply for it and receive it. So if you have questions while you're filling it out, please answer or please hit us up and we'll answer them the best that we can. So transparency, let us know if you have individuals within your organization that also have an affiliation with us at ArtsWA. So this includes staff, commissioners, consultants, contractors, current grant panelists, immediate family members of any of the former who are affiliated with your organization. This is for transparency only. The panel will review your application without bias. And then appeals. So if you don't get funded, you are able to appeal. You just hit the link there, and that's going to tell you the process of how to file an appeal. And also, I will also, when I send out the notice of folks who are not funded, the appeal process will be in there as well. So I'm happy to help folks go through that. So as we look down here, so the practice grant, what is it? So we've got a plan. This is a scored application, okay, of up to 100 points. Your plan is worth 30 points. So a well thought out plan is going to help you score. So being as specific as you possibly can be is what's gonna work for that. And then a budget, the same thing goes for your budget. Being specific and understanding what the needs are going to be, and then work samples, right? That's another 20 points. And so when we say we're scoring your art samples, we're not scoring them based on whether we think the samples that you provide are good or not good. What we're looking for is clear images, quality video or sound files of what you're sending us. So we just basically want to see the commitment that you have of whatever art that you're practicing, if that makes sense. We're not judging on what it actually is. We're judging on how well of the pictures that you send us so that we can see them, if that makes sense. So grants are a mutual responsibility between ArtsWA, taxpayers, and the grant recipient. Like I said, this is a state-funded program, so all of our funding comes from state taxpayers. So we take great effort to ensure that this grant, the program goals are met and that public benefit is addressed, okay? So down here, we come to the application portion. So this is just the qualification. So you can put, if you've ever applied for a grant before, this isn't a deal breaker. As I said, you can be a past recipient. So you just hit yes or no. Do you have any conflicts with ArtsWA? So like if it was me applying for this, I would put yes, I have a conflict because I am the program manager of this program, right? Your last and first name, your email, your home address. So this is just filling out your basic information. Whether your eligibility. So for me, I'm a veteran, what type of art. And again, this is not the be all end all list. If it's something that's not on here, you can put other and then write in what it is. We just want to know what it is. And then, be creative. If it's not something on the list, let us know what it is. It's not a deal breaker. In fact, I would love to see some stuff that isn't on this list get funded. And so art practice plan. All right. So here's where we get into the nitty gritty here. What preparations have you made to accomplish your plan in I know it says 4-week period, but that was just something that I needed to get taken out. It's not a 4-week period. It's from January 1 to June 30th. So what preparations have you made for this grant? So some things to consider: time away from work, childcare, research needed for supplies, researching workshops, other professional development, rentals. We want to know what you've done to ensure that you have the time and resources to accomplish your plan within this time frame, right? So it's really important to be as specific as possible. Like if I just say, if I'm filling out this grant for myself and I'm saying I want to just make a video on whatever, right? that's not going to be as competitive as I want to make a video on this specific thing. Here's how I'm going to make it happen. On this week, I'm going to do research into whatever that might be. The next week, I'm going to take out and start my first filming session. The next week, I'm going to edit that and see what worked and what didn't. The next week, I'm going to do, you see what I'm saying? Be as specific as you possibly can be. And that's going to help you get through this application and be a competitive grant application. So then also, as I said, we're allowing 20% of your grant to be used for living expenses. You just put yes or no, whether you're going to use it or not. And then right here, we want to know what your single biggest expense is going to be during this period, right? And it could be a piece of equipment. It could be, we've had folks go to retreats or go to a location like the coast to do some drawing or some writing retreat or whatever that might be. And the biggest expense might be like a hotel stay for that time. And so just tell us what it's going to be. And then please be aware that when planning to purchase equipment, you still need to have enough funding for the materials left for your project. Okay, so you don't want to get something that's so big that you're not going to. You have to be able to fund the entire project in that $3,000 scope, if that makes sense. So like, if you say, I need the $3,000, but my total project is going to be $5,000, and I'm going to cut in the last $2,000 on myself. That's not, that won't be considered a successful application. And then we want to know what support you need from us during this period. Like if you need, or after, if you need help, like, hey, I want to show my work later, or I want to like do a workshop so I can teach other folks how to do what I'm doing. Let us know what we can do to support you during this time. This isn't something, we're not just going to give you the funding and then leave you high and dry. Like we want to work with you all throughout this entire process, throughout the design thinking class, to make sure that your needs are met and that you're doing everything that you can, and that we're doing everything that we can to help you along and have a successful project. And then what will you accomplish during this period? So tell us how you will use this grant to pursue personal growth and art production, right? So best scoring responses, have a clearly articulated plan, include benchmark dates for specific activities. If possible, follow this format. So we've got the format right here to follow, like complete this text with your work you plan to reach in place of your art practice development, then follow up with a list of benchmark dates. So on this date, by this date, I want to have this. This date, I want to have this, right? And then another big piece of this, this being a taxpayer-funded program, is that community public benefit, right? So assuming you're funded, how would you bring the benefits forward into your community, right? How are you going to connect with the public or other, if you work with veterans or military connected folks outside of this, how are you going to connect this with them? Like, working towards a public exhibition, honing your skills to produce workshops that you want to do, visiting a school to talk about making art. Like, we want to know what you're going to do to give back to the community with your project. All right. And so then here's the budget. So you can put in the total request amount. It doesn't have to be the full $3,000. If your project that you want to do is only going to cost you $2,000 or $1,500 to do, just put that. It doesn't have to be the full $3,000. And so as we kind of scroll through what this is, so this is really important to be as specific as you can, right? With the living expense, with the line items, right? Your supplies. So don't just put line item project $3,000, right? We want you to be specific and put in every single thing that is going to cost money, travel, lodging, workshops, childcare, art making, rent space or temporary storage, total equipment purchases. I know that says cannot exceed 15% of your grant. It's 50. We just can't change this without having to create an entire new spreadsheet. So we left it. You'll see a correction on the bottom. But it is 50%, not 15. And so equipment, technology, let us know. And if there's other expenses that aren't on here, put it here, right? And then the total will populate down here. So being as specific as you can So doing your research and really finding out what you need and how much that's all going to cost will make your application successful. So I have it right here. Yeah, please note that in the art practice budget table where it says cannot exceed 15%, it should be 50, right? So the total payments made to you will not exceed the awarded grant amount under any circumstance. So make sure you're requesting enough funds to accomplish your goals for this project, right? So here's kind of some, here's what the line item description, and then we can't add more rows to this. So if you need to group expenses, that's fine. Just have a clear text down here kind of explaining what those are. Or if you need to add more expenses that don't, if you run out of space on there, you can add it in here in other expenses. And so work samples. So if you see, here's all the different types of files that you can upload, right? So we need a minimum of three art samples as well as a description sheet. So give us your samples and then upload a description sheet telling us what they are. Let's see. Or if you'd rather provide links, like say you have like a YouTube channel, an Instagram account, a website, whatever that might be, you can put those here as well instead, so we can see it from there. So one of those two, you don't have to upload a file and put a website. You can if you want to, but you can do one or you can do the other. As long as we have a total of 3 art samples, you're good. You can put in more if you want to, but we need a minimum of 3. And then right here is where you hit your required documents. And that's it. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. I know I went through that pretty fast. So I want to ask if anybody has any questions, or Gabby, Dania, if you have, well, first, Gabby and Dania, I guess I just realized right now I did not give you the opportunity to introduce yourselves to the folks here. So if you want to do that real quick, and if there's anything that I missed or anything that you want to add to what we just went over, please do.
Hello, my name is Dania Baisubanova, and I'm the program specialist for the VAM program.
Hello, my name is Gabriella Smith, and I'm the administrative assistant for the Wellness Arts and Military program. And there are a few questions in the chat. Should I go over them now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So question, could I expense to pay other artists to feature in music I make?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. And then we already discussed that YouTube links can be added to the art sample area.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a question, can we submit work samples of somebody else's work that's similar to what we want to learn?
No, all art has to be your own. But that's not to say that you can't, you don't have to submit, like if, like say I like to make videos, right? But now I want to learn how to do a different, a totally different medium or practice. That's totally okay. But submit samples of your own work of things that you've done before, and then just say, I want to learn. But then in your description and in your plan, I would say like, I want to learn how to I'll tie flies for fly fishing. I want to learn how to do that, or I want to learn how to like do wood turning. And here's how I'm going to do it. So the plan would still be the same, but we just want to see samples of stuff that you have done in the past. Doesn't have to be professional level. We're not looking for professional level artists here. We're just looking for folks who like to make things, that like to create, and want to try it. Does that make sense?
So just for clarification, because
yep.
And this is for our grant application packet, not the end products.
Right.
We still have to submit 3 samples, and it could just be stuff we did. It doesn't have to be the exact thing. Okay.
Right.
You just want to see that we're artistic, creative, we've done stuff, and it doesn't have to be tied to our future skills.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
There is 2 in the chat. How about purchasing specialized software for digital media art form, or would this be limited to the 50% rule? So
Nope.
yes, but under the 50%?
So it would be, so I would consider that, it would depend on your project. So we'd have to talk about kind of what the project is. So when we think of equipment, we're thinking of physical equipment. Programs and software are definitely things that you are able to purchase. But again, just making sure that you are able, along with that, if it's something that you've never used before, being able to demonstrate that, you know, some sort of training or course to learn how to operate the program.
Yep. And then, you know, someone asked about if they could do 2 or 3 different things within their project.
So we're looking for, sorry,
No,
we're
go
looking
ahead.
for a single project, right? You know, if that were the case, I would say start small, and really focus on one project. And then, you know, if you enjoy it, if it's something you want to come back and do again, apply for a grant next cycle again. But yeah, we're looking for one specific project per application.
Yeah. And I was gonna just add to that the design course is really helpful in supporting the way that you're going to fill that project. So
Thanks, Gabby.
yeah, I think that is it. Oh, one more just added. Would you prefer a project that is 1,000 or 3,000 budget? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't
Right?
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're looking for you know, just a really great application. How much the project costs, as long as it's within $3,000. You know, if the applications are great, one that's more money isn't going to be higher or lower than one that's less money, if that makes sense.
Is there a limit on applications you are able to approve?
Right now, I don't have an exact number, but it'll probably be around probably around 50. And that's actually a great question, but yeah, it should be around 50. And, you know, part of that is also, you know, in consideration for us as well when, you know, doing, payments to make sure folks get paid. If any more than that would really be pretty rough for our staff to get those payments to you guys in a timely manner. So yeah, it's probably going to be, we're probably going to have to cut off at 50. And so that's why the scoring is so important. And that's why having those strong applications are important. Any other questions?
How many were approved last year?
Last year we had 42 approved applications last year.
Yes.
And we're hoping to bump that up. So.
And then how many tend to apply? I would say around that same range.
Yeah,
a little bit more.
A little bit more.
Year.
We have a really high acceptance. You know, our goal is to accept as many applications as we can. We never want to like turn people away. So our first year we had around 85 to 87 applications, and we funded like 71 or 72 of them. And then this last year we had low 50s and we funded 42 of them. So, you know, we want to fund applications. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then real quick, Brian, you know, I just, Will asked a question about, you know, software. And I just want to share my experience from 2 years ago when I was a grantee. I did it on photography and video. And what I found is it's hard to find software that's not subscription based, especially in Adobe now, but they still have. And so I went through and I got, Adobe Photoshop Lighthouse, but the licensed packager, and that's what I put in my grant budget. And then, you don't lose access after 30 or 45. So that's what you'll want to look at, is actually purchasing a licensed software, not just a 45.
Yeah, that's actually really great. That's a really great comment, Jared. Thank you. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Like if you want to purchase software that's a subscription-based fee, make sure you purchase enough. Either if you can't find something that's just the full out license, but finding something that you can get enough of a lead, like if you can use your funds to pay for a year straight, so that way you have enough enough time in advance to be able to do that. That would be important. All right. Anything else?
Brian, there is one question saying if it's all right to submit more than one idea. And I just wanted to answer to that. It is better to choose one idea, because you will need to provide the budget and the description. So if you have like several ideas, that might require different budgets. So if you are unsure, just reach out to us and we can advise you on which idea would be more suitable for this project.
Perfect. Thank you. Will, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. It's a kind of a combination of the ideas. So there was I did an art class at university a few years back and really enjoyed the freedom of it and created a piece. But over the years, sadly, the piece was damaged and then destroyed. And I was wanting to recreate it, but at a larger scale, which includes videography. And I've also done a digital storytelling. I do workshops on those, and so wanted to kind of capture the process as well as the actual creation of the piece. So it's going to be it's one project, but it's got like 4 steps.
Sure.
So that's why I was like, would that be too broad?
I don't think
narrow it
so.
down for this, or
I don't think
will
so.
include multiple media. So
yeah, I think something like that, like you're creating a process video of you making the piece. I think that's kind of cool. So I don't see an issue with that. Like what we mean by like multiple projects of like, I want to create a video, and then I also want to do something completely, then I also want to write a story, and then I also want to paint. Just having multiple different things that don't combine and have necessarily anything to do with each other, if that makes sense.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Thank you
Yeah.
for the clarification.
Absolutely. And then just one more comment before we go. At any point in time, we want your applications to be successful. So if you want us to take a look at your application after you submitted, we go through all of them as the application is open. And if we have questions about something, we're going to let you guys know. We're going to say, hey, can you please, like, this part doesn't really make sense, or you're missing a piece of your application that you really need to get in. So we're gonna let you know what is if something in your application is missing. And so if you submit something, your application, you can say, hey, can you give this a once over real quick? We're happy to do that and let you know if anything is missing. Like, I'm not gonna I can't necessarily comment on like what score you would get, because that goes to a panel. But what I could say is I could tell you, like, if I think your application is going to be competitive, or if you're missing something, or if something doesn't make sense, right? We're here to help. The 3 of us are here to help and support you all. So we're going to do what we can for that. So please don't hesitate to use us, essentially, is what I'm saying. We're here to help. All right. And that's all I have. So if there aren't any more questions, I just want to thank all of you for your time. And if anything comes up after this, any dying questions, please reach out to myself, Dania, or Gabby. We're here for you all. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.